people who've been around Missoula for a while. She's been singing in Missoula for 50 years. She's kind of like Joan Baez of Montana. Okay, she's written lots and lots of songs. She's part of Unitarian Universalist. They use her whole songbook as one of their main songbooks. She was just in Missoula last week and did a concert, which jazzed me up. This is a new song she just wrote, so I wanted to pass it on here. Okay. So good. I was really happy to see that we got a new clock. You know, the one we had before was really little. I could barely see it, but there's a big clock. I don't know who made the clock, but thank you. Who bought the clock? Anyway, that's great. So now I probably won't talk too long, because I always have more things to say than you probably want to listen to anyway. And the only thing is, what I say is usually my opinion. I don't pretend to say unity teachings. This is my stuff, my idea. So always have that caveat when I talk. But I really love that song. So how long has it been since you heard the word wicked? And not just because you watched the movie or the play, right? I grew up with that word, right? In the Southern Baptist Church, we heard the word wicked all the time. The wicked world, wicked people, wicked children, right? You ever get called wicked when you were little? Actually, I don't think I ever did, but I'm sure I heard, I figured I must have been, right? I know Kathy was, right? Some people, you know, got called wicked somewhere. Anyway, is it too old-fashioned? No? Is the world wicked? Does unity believe the world is wicked? I don't know. Sometimes I think it is, but that's my opinion. What to do, you know? I love this song, Love Points Away. And I remember lots of songs we used to sing called like, Love is All You Need, right? All you need is love. Everything is that. Is that really all we need? Is that enough to push us and get us all through our life? The theme right now is Welcome New Life. Well, it is new. It's spring, Tuesday's equinox. There's a big comet coming through right now, you know. A lot of things are kind of shaken up. All of that. Time to lighten up. But is love enough to move us forward? Maybe it's enough to move us personally forward. Okay. I'm not sure. But is it enough to move us forward as a people, as a nation, as a whole world? Is it enough for everything? But if I look forward from a place of love, that's a good place for me to start. But I don't know if everybody else is looking from that place, are they? And even in the song, it says it points away. Does that get us all the way there? Does that get us all the way forward into a new point? We just heard again the unity themes, right? The 5 tenets that we believe in. Is that enough to give us all what we need to go forward? I'm afraid I'm going to hit my head there. Is that enough to give us what we need to move forward in our whole world? Thank you, dear. Well, it helps. It says God is active. It says, I do the best I am, some other things. I live my truth. But to me, there's not a lot of action in that. Okay? And I'm sure it took a long time just for a lot of people in unity to believe on those 5 things, to all agree, right? Can you imagine a committee trying to figure out those tenets? Take forever. to have a committee agree on that. But there isn't, to me, a whole lot about other people in that. We believe other people have divinity in them. Well, okay, that's nice. They acted. What about if there's still some wicked people out there? I don't know. I got to think about that a lot. There's a quote by, a lot of quotes lately by a guy named Jim Palmer. Anybody been reading him a little bit? Brilliant, brilliant guy, okay? Does stuff, Facebook, books, written a bunch of books, Substack, you can listen to him. He's just great. Linda quotes him quite a bit now, and I definitely could quote him a whole lot, but please read him. One he had just recently is talked about errors in thinking he made, or errors in choices he made. And he would put something ahead of another, and that was what he considered an error in his actions before. He said he put the afterlife over the here life, the hereafter over the here now. That's a mistake, right? We got to be in the here now. You know, I grew up thinking a lot about the afterlife. That was, but because I was wicked, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen. Well, but, you know, eventually I started thinking about the here life, and it got better. He has a whole series of these, like 20 of them, but I'm going to talk about 4 of them here for a minute. He put another one out that is really big for me, especially after Barbie movie came out. I love it. Patriarchy over equality. You put the standard of the status quo over recognizing equality. Another error. And then probably my favorite. Faith over critical thinking. Faith instead of critical thinking. Now, I don't know, that almost sounds a little blasphemous, but critical thinking is still absolutely necessary, no matter if we have faith. It just depends on what we have faith about, but you got to be careful with that. Critical thinking is really important. And then maybe the last one, a little bit blasphemous. Prayer over action. It's nice to pray for things, right? That's really good. It's nice to affirm things, but you know, sometimes you got to get up off your ass and move. Excuse me? Yeah, sometimes you got to do actions. So I don't know all of Unity's deep principles, and I really do believe that there's an incredible amount of truth in them. But every now and then, that's a little something that's missing for me. Okay, I mean, every religion has not everything for everybody, right? But you know, sometimes I go to other churches. Anyway, that's not blasphemous, is it either? Last week I went to UU, Unitarian Universalist. You guys ever been there? It's a little group.
Yeah, they got an evil preacher.
Okay, well, no, I got no opinions about that. Okay, well, last week Judy Fiel was there, the lady who wrote this song, right? Love Points Away. And she was doing the service there, which means you get to sing the whole service. I really like that. So maybe we'll have her come sing here sometime. It would be nice. So they have tenants too, right? They have 7 of them, a little more. So, and I'm not saying they're better, or, you know, they're just a little different than ours, but there's some interesting things in there. They affirm and promote, okay? Not just affirmations, but okay. The inherent worth and dignity of every person. Justice, equality, and compassion in human relations. Justice and compassion. Are those opposite words? Can you do justice and compassion at the same time? Okay, interesting concept. Acceptance of one another and encouragement of spiritual growth. A free and responsible search for meaning and truth. The right of conscience and the use of democratic process within our congregation and in society at large. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. That's kind of interesting. To me, there's a little more action words in there. There's a lot more words about other people and our whole country and the whole world. Okay. I think it's interesting to think a little bit about what it is we believe, what we're trying to promote. And there's another cool song that she wrote that we sang as well there. It's called Love and Justice. Those two words fit together? Can you have love and justice? I think a while back, we even started the concept of tough love. You know, that might sound kind of personal, but if we expand it, it really is the word justice. Appropriate consequences, understanding, justice. And it's a kind of a cool song. It has a couple of examples from the verses are, you know, if you care for a woman or a man, that can be love. But if you respect that person's right to choose, especially a woman, you respect her right to make her own decisions, that's justice. If you put those together, that's a really nice combination, right? It's nice to care about somebody, to love them, but to help provide justice for them, that's important. Another example, you might accept your son's gay partner, okay? That's love, you know, to allow your son making his choice there. But if you also vote or do social action to make sure that your son can marry that partner, that's justice. That's an even broader kind of love, in my opinion. Love and justice. I think that's a really powerful connection. And to me, that's at least two of the things that we need to move forward. Two of the things that we really need to carry with us as our belief system, as our understanding, as our motivation for doing things. And since it's almost Holy Week here, I got to remind you of something I said last year. Only a year ago, I got to speak on Palm Sunday, and I told one of the stories about Holy Week when Jesus went to Jerusalem and all sorts of things were happening. After he went there, one of the next things he did, like on Tuesday, I don't know if it's Sunday or Tuesday, what day ever it was, he went to the temple. And what did he do there? He kicked out the guys that were selling indulgences, right? With a whip. He threw them out of the temple. He said, these guys are making a mockery of religion. He said, these guys are not what religion is about. They are a stain on his Father's house. That was action. And you know the funny thing? In the Catholic Church for 1,000 years, every other action of Holy Week, they made a special celebration day out of. Holy Week itself has like 5 holy days. It doesn't have that Tuesday. Why do you think that is? Wow, because all through the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church was selling indulgences just like the other guys were. Sacrifices. Talk about politics. Catholic Church has a excellent public relations director for the last 2,000 years. They were really good at that. Anyway, to me, that's love and justice. Okay, that's really important in what I understand. Okay, I'll lighten up for a minute here. You ever heard of somebody that we celebrate on March 17th? No. St. Gertrude. St. Gertrude's festival day is March 17th. Now, have you heard of St. Gertrude? No? She's a great saint. I like her. She's a woman. That's one thing that starts out. She is French and came from Belgium in 659, way back. And there's a huge church and a monastery dedicated to her. The Collegiate Church of St. Gertrude is in a place called Nivelles, a Roman Catholic church in Belgium, built in the 11th century. It is dedicated to St. Gertrude, who is the patron saint of cats. Love cats. Still have 4 of them. We used to have 6. They're part of my favorite support system. Aren't your cats your support system? Or your dogs, maybe? You know, they're all definitely support. So anyway, she was a pretty interesting lady, and at the monastery. It was built actually by her mother, who happened to be a wealthy woman, and she wanted to protect her daughter. So she shaved her daughter's head and put it in that round thing. Maybe you've seen in the movies, the hair in the middle of their head. That made people prepared to be nuns, okay, for women. And she had lots of money. And so instead of supporting some political thing, she built a church and a monastery, a place where women could come be nuns and be safe from the rest of the world. Now, I know maybe I'm twisting that a little, but I think there weren't too many safe places to go for women, especially back in the 11th century, the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages. Not a very safe place for women. So in order to protect her daughter, she built this monastery. And actually, apparently, at the time, historically, a whole lot of other women who happened to have money built monasteries. Because if they got married, or if their daughters got married, who got the money? The guys. And it ended up funding some war somewhere. It wasn't just her, but it had been quite a few others. So they founded something that would make a safe place for women. I love that. Okay. It's like creating your own special charity. But Gertrude herself, as a young woman, was quite miraculous. She had miraculous visions. And was actually sainted by the Catholic Church because of that. She pictured flaming energies in the basilica in the church. She revealed prophecy to her other sisters at the monastery. She apparently had what was called a visitation of the true light of God. That's why she got sainted. She also had visions about people traveling and sailors. So she became the patron saint of sailors as well, and the patron saint of travelers. So apparently back then, if you really had visionaries and visions and your prophecies became true, that was how to make your way into being a saint. Haven't tried that myself. Anyway, but there's a whole bunch of things about her that she had these visions and ended up having people protected because of her visions. And so she was the patron saint of cats. And she was helpful in having cats kept at every monastery. Now, some people back then were suspicious of cats, and they wanted to say cats were related to the devil. Well, the places who didn't have cats had rats, and they had the plague. So she kept a whole lot of the monastery's people safe from having the Black Plague because she had cats as protected. Anyway, it was a lot of work to protect yourself back then. So there was a lot of things. Anyway, I think she's great. And actually, March 17th is the day of her death. They don't know the day of her birth, but they know the day of her death back in the 600s. So, yay. Now, I know a lot of other people celebrate somebody else on this day, but I got to say, most of them celebrate them by drinking alcohol. Now, is that the way to celebrate a saint? I don't know. Well, yeah. That goes without saying, right? Anyway, but maybe you've all heard by now. I mean, I love Ireland, and I love the Druid tradition and the Celtic tradition and all those kind of things. And I'm very respectful of Ireland. But if you think back then, in those Middle Ages, what usually happened when the Catholics came to a place where the indigenous people had their own religion and their own language and their own way of doing things? What happened up in Arlee when the Catholics came to the Salish people? Was that really? I don't know. I can't actually say that that was a good thing. Well, history is always told by the victors. And history is told by the people who put whatever spin on it they want. There are some other writings about what actually happened when Patrick was in Ireland that don't come down as part of what you can read in the Catholic history, by the way. Anyway, enough of that. But, we know what happens to indigenous peoples, right? So anyway, there's always a lot of different opinions about that. One other thing I read, I even have the Catholic channel on my favorites on my television. I know that's weird, but they have some weird things on there sometimes. There's some nuns on there that are pretty revolutionary. There's a nun in Ireland that talks, and she's an incredible Bible scholar, and she tells these weird stories about strange things in the Bible. And the one that recently she was telling, because it's almost Easter. Did you know who carried the cross for Jesus? You ever learn that little detail? Cyrenius. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Cyrene. Do you know who he was? He was an African. And some of the pictures of him actually he had blackface. He was a Jew from North Africa. And apparently at the time, there were a whole lot of them. There were a lot of Jews that lived in North Africa. But because it was Passover, what did they have to do? They had to come to Jerusalem and be in the temple. That was their duty. So there were lots and lots of Black people in Jerusalem at the time. And apparently, there's some stories, you have to pick out the little details, which is what this one particular nun who's a Bible scholar does. Picks out little tiny stories in the Bible and makes them bigger. She also apparently was a nun in Africa for a long time. Anyway, the detail that she just talked about a lot was that the Roman soldiers asked someone to carry the cross when Jesus dropped it. So who would they pick out? Who would the white people pick out to carry Jesus's cross? A back man. Ah, interesting. And he at first refused. And then it says in some place in the Bible that he looked in Jesus's eyes and was forever transformed, picked up the cross and carried it for him. And apparently in Africa, that's a really profound thing for the Christians that are in Africa. They believe that's part of prophecy, that Africa will really be powerful in the prophecy of Christianity. At the end was the last act before Jesus was crucified. And the other little thing she points out is that 2 of his sons became a very important part of Jesus's entourage after his teachings and the foundings of the church. They worked with Peter and some of the other disciples over the next 50 years to help found the Christianity in a true sense. Cool to know a little bit of, there was a little more diversity in there. Anyway, one other odd thing I learned from the channel, getting close to being done here, but in France, there is an app that you can put on your phone. And if you type in the name of a priest that you meet, you can first know if he's a real priest, since I can't say she there, and if it's ever been convicted or suspected of abuse. It shows up green, yellow, or red. If yellow, if they've ever been suspected of abuse, and green if they've ever been prosecuted for abuse. Interesting little safety net. Maybe we should have that here, you know? That'd be really good. Anyway, I'm really into love and justice. I think that's just really, really important. And in a moment here, I want to read you a little story as a meditation. I'm going to read something that's kind of like a little letter to you. So, okay, if you feel like relaxing a little bit here or just focusing a little, maybe close your eyes. Everybody likes to be read a story once in a while, right? And the other day when I told people to watch Barbie, I said to the men, this is kind of written for women, but just pretend you can just kind of go along with it, right? Okay, I don't know if you want to put some very soft tones on, or I can just read it too. I don't know. Here we go. If the angels could have sat you down for a chat when you were on the way to this life, they might have said this. Now, my dear, a little context. You are entering into a transitional time. The past, a world led, designed, and defined by men. The future, a world led, designed, and defined by women and men. The present, the transition. Yes, we've put you on the transition team. What's so tricky to understand is that a woman of this transitional time, what is inside of you will be very different from what is outside of you. What you have to bring into the world will be very different from what you see before you as the status quo. Yet what you have to bring forth is not crazy or wrong. In fact, it's just what the world needs. It's as if the world is all purple, and you and your sisters are going to bring in the yellow, or if it's blue and you're going to bring in the red. That means that whether or not you signed up for it, you will be a revolutionary. You will be a revolutionary, whether you love the idea or whether you prefer just to do your thing quietly, be a teacher, a nurse, a doctor, a businesswoman, an artist, a mom, a grandmother, a volunteer, an entrepreneur, or anything else. You will be a revolutionary because any woman who is being authentic in her work will bring forth ideas and ways of working that run counter to the status quo. A status quo defined by masculine values and masculine ways of working. The angels might have added this. So if you ever start to doubt or hold back or silence yourself because the questions you have, the ideas in your mind, or the way you work are so different from the status quo, remember that difference is exactly what is meant to be. You are here to bring forth a different way. It's the hard and thrilling work you get to do this time around. It's the woman's work of our particular moment in history. You don't have to do the whole work, but you are asked to do the slice of that work that has been given to you. Now, before you explain that you just don't know what that slice is, or panic because you don't have the bandwidth for anything else, remember, this isn't the work that takes additional time. This is the work about how you live each moment of your life. You don't need to do it alone, though sometimes you might feel you're alone. You walk on this path with a world of women who are surviving on the rocky ground of this world while also changing it to a richer, healthier soil. If you look for it, you will start to see all around you the shared path of the women in your midst, each working to bring forth a different way to some aspect of the world. So just for a moment, let yourself focus on what your slice of that work is and has been, because you've already been living it. You've already lived your life different than other people. That's how you're here. Give yourself credit for coming to this moment. And whatever else you have left to do. Thank you for this time this morning. Blessings and namaste. That's from a woman named Tara Moore. She has a website. She teaches, writes books. Good stuff. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, so let us gather and do that. Okay. Together, the light of God